In a blink of an eye, like every NFL season, we have officially made it to the postseason, and there are a ton of really fun matchups that I think are going to take place in the next couple of weeks as we crown an NFL champion. But much like I do every single season, I want to give some postseason predictions, and I want to let you guys know who I think is going to win the Super Bowl this year, and maybe a couple surprise teams that go on a couple of runs here. Now, here is a look at my bracket. Obviously, the two number one seeds between the Kansas City Chiefs and the Detroit Lions, they're going to have first round byes. They're going to be escaping wild card weekend. But starting off in the AFC, we have the Houston Texans against the Los Angeles Chargers. And this game, I feel like, is going to be kind of a slugfest, your traditional run the football, play defense type of game. I think the biggest difference for me in this game is how these two teams have ended the season. The Texans kind of faltering, losing a couple of pretty bad games, getting blown out by the Baltimore Ravens at home, losing to the Tennessee Titans at home as well. While the Los Angeles Chargers have been on a hot streak. At one point it was like, are they going to be the 7th seed? Are they going to be missing out on the playoffs? No, they're going to be the number 5 seed. And year number 1 with Jim Harbaugh and Justin Herbert, that's a tremendous accomplishment. I think this is going to be a very low scoring football game, but I'm just going to trust the more proven head coach and the more proven quarterback who's been having a better season to take care of the football. CJ Stroud has had a lot of turnovers this year, costed the Texans some games here or there. Give me the Los Angeles Chargers and Jim Harbaugh and Justin Herbert to win their first playoff game together. Now the Ravens against the Pittsburgh Steelers. This is the 3rd time that these teams have faced off against each other this season, so it's always kind of an interesting dynamic when you have teams play against each other that many times in one season. However, similarly to the Texans and Chargers matchup, again, these two teams have been going in opposite directions the last month or so of the season. At one point, the Pittsburgh Steelers had a 2-game lead on the Ravens for the division title, and since then they have played really bad football. Albeit they were playing some of the best teams in the league, but that doesn't really matter in the playoffs because you're playing all of those teams once again. I mean, they got blown out by the Eagles, the Chiefs, even the Ravens on the road, and now they're going back to Baltimore. I just don't see how the Steelers get this one done. I'm going to take Lamar Jackson at home with Derrick Henry to kind of win in commanding fashion against the Pittsburgh Steelers. And the last game for the AFC wildcard is the Buffalo Bills hosting the Denver Broncos. And I have a feeling this game could get fairly interesting, maybe like a tie ball game heading into the 4th quarter, just a tight game in Buffalo because Denver is a very formidable team and they match up fairly well against the Buffalo Bills. Denver has an elite coach in Sean Payton, so I think they're going to have the coaching matchup. Denver has a fantastic offensive line, and the Bills' interior defensive line is not very good. So if the Broncos can rely on their running game, get 4.5, 5 yards per carry, I do think the Bills could find themselves in some trouble here. But ultimately, I'm not going to pick against Josh Allen and Sean McDermott in the opening round of the playoffs. They routinely win every single year in this round at home, having kind of a week of rest with all their starters sitting out. I'm still going to take Buffalo, but I do think this game could be a pretty close one down the stretch. Now to the NFC, maybe the hardest game to pick in this wildcard round is between the Rams and the Vikings, the 4 versus 5 matchup, with the Vikings actually being a 14-win team having to go on the road. The Vikings obviously have a lot more firepower with Jordan Addison, TJ Hawkinson, Justin Jefferson, Aaron Jones, and I'm worried about the Rams secondary being able to hold up against all of that weaponry. But something that does scare me is how Sam Darnold performed in his last high-stakes game. Literally his last game he played against the Detroit Lions at Ford Field with the number 1 seed, the division title all on the line. He played atrocious. And now he's going to go into a playoff game the following week with even more pressure now because he's playing for a contract. He's playing for a lot of money. And if he does not play well in this one, he's going to lose out on probably tens of millions of dollars. So I think Sam Darnold could get kind of tight in this matchup, not play super well. And if that's the case, I'm going to trust Matthew Stafford, Kyron Williams, and Puka Nacua to do just enough to be able to win at home against this Minnesota team. I think another thing that plays into this is the coaching matchup between Sean McVay and Kevin O'Connell. O'Connell learned from McVay, so McVay I feel like is going to have an advantage there, kind of knowing what O'Connell likes and really being the one that taught him a lot of his ways. I don't feel great about this one, but I'm going to pick the LA Rams to move on to the divisional round. Now, maybe the most fun matchup for a casual NFL fan could be the Buccaneers against the Commanders. I think there's going to be a lot of points scored in this game. Baker Mayfield, who had over 40 touchdowns this year, and Jaden Daniels, a fantastic rookie season. I just think ultimately you want to take the veteran team that does have a lot of experience. I mean, they won a playoff game last year, competed with the Lions at Ford Field in the divisional round, so they have a lot more veterans on this team. They have a quarterback and coach who have been here before multiple times, and the Commanders haven't been great on the road this year. It's pretty well known how rookie quarterbacks fare in the playoffs. It's not super good, so I'm going to take the Buccaneers at home to have a shootout win against a rookie quarterback and the Commanders, who had a fantastic season, but I still think kind of lacked the overall roster talent needed to go on a playoff run. Now, the final game of the wildcard round is the Philadelphia Eagles against the Green Bay Packers, and I think this is an interesting matchup because how both quarterbacks are coming into this game. We have Jalen Hurts off a concussion. He, I think, just got out of concussion protocol, but he hasn't practiced in a couple of weeks now, so he might be a little bit rusty in this game. And then the Green Bay Packers, you have Jordan Love, who suffered an elbow injury in the last game of the season against the Chicago Bears. He's going to play in this game, but how is that elbow injury going to impact him? Who knows? And Christian Watson, he is out for this game, kind of their deep threat receiver, so I do think it's going to make their offense a little less explosive in this matchup, which could kind of tilt things in the Eagles' favor. Ultimately, at home with the rushing attack and Saquon Barkley being rested after not playing last week, I think Philly gets it done. I do think Philly's going to come out very hot, maybe get up to a very big lead early against Green Bay, and then Jordan Love and kind of their weaponry will battle back and make it look a little bit closer than it actually was. But I do think Philly is going to move on to the divisional round and host the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. But now things get interesting in the divisional round. We're back to the AFC. We have the Chiefs against the Chargers, another pair of teams. They're going to be facing off against each other for the third time this year. And in the first two games, the Chargers did compete with the Chiefs in both of them. They both went down to the stretch. I think that could happen for this third one as well. But when you have Patrick Mahomes and Andy Reid and Steve Spagnuolo, you have a long time to rest, long time to build a game plan. I just don't see how you can pick against the Chiefs. I'm going to have them go to the AFC Championship game and host yet another conference championship game. And now the Buffalo Bills hosting the Baltimore Ravens. This has kind of turned into a rivalry over the past couple of years between these two fan bases, with Lamar Jackson and Josh Allen routinely being like in the MVP kind of discussion and both the quarterbacks being compared a lot. This game for me comes down to Derrick Henry and the Buffalo Bills run defense. The first time these teams played earlier in the season, the Bills got absolutely thrashed on the ground. And if that's going to happen again, they are not going to win this game, no matter how good Josh Allen plays and no matter how good the home field advantage serves them. Matt Milano did not play in that game. I don't believe Terrell Bernard played in that game either for the Bills. So maybe that linebacking core does help them play better against the run. But the Bills love to play nickel defense, and that is not a good matchup against the bruising Baltimore Ravens. So I just don't like this matchup a ton for the Bills. It's going to take Josh Allen to have a heroic performance, which he definitely is capable of. We've seen it multiple times in the playoffs. We saw it multiple times this season and multiple times throughout his career. But for me, I'm going to side with Derrick Henry in this Ravens rushing attack and the coaching staff that I more believe in with John Harbaugh to go into Buffalo and have a rematch against the Kansas City Chiefs in the conference championship game. And now to the NFC, we have another rematch between the Lions against the Rams. This will be the third time these teams have played in the last 2 years because they met in the playoffs. They also played in week number 1 this season. Similarly to the Chiefs, I just don't see how you can pick against the Lions and their coaching staff with a long rest, a long time to prepare, at home with one of the best home fields in the entire playoffs. I'm going to pick Detroit, but I do think that Matthew Stafford and the Rams can keep this game close because of all the familiarity. And then also Matthew Stafford isn't going to be bothered by the crowd noise and that environment because he played in Detroit for so long, so he's kind of used to that. But ultimately, I just think the firepower that the Lions have is going to be too much for the Rams secondary, which is one of the worst in the league. So give me Detroit to move on to the conference championship game for the second straight season. And now the Philadelphia Eagles against the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. I feel like a lot of people are picking the Buccaneers to pull off the upset in this game because of all their success against the Eagles recently, with Todd Bowles' scheme, how he's able to get pressure under Jalen Hurts and not really allow him to get loose and run for a ton of yards. But I just can't get there, especially in Philadelphia. I think Kellen Moore is going to have a revised plan to attack that Todd Bowles blitzing defense. And the Buccaneers are just so vulnerable in the secondary. The last time these two teams played, A.J. Brown did not play, Devontae Smith did not play. They're going to be back theoretically for this game. So I'm just going to trust Philly and the better roster at home to take down the Buccaneers. And I feel like also, I said this was going to be a crash course to the NFC Championship game between the Lions and Eagles at the beginning of the season. I'm not going to waver off that. So we have the Chiefs against the Ravens in the AFC Championship game and the Lions against the Eagles in the NFC Championship game. But I'm going to change it up and first pick my NFC champion first. I think the Detroit Lions, I think this is their year to represent the NFC. There's going to be a lot of urgency for the Lions because I do think they could be losing both of their coordinators, actually a great chance to lose both their coordinators in Aaron Glenn and Ben Johnson to head coaching jobs. So I think with that urgency in having home field advantage, which is going to be such a big thing for the Lions because of how crazy Ford Field gets, I'm just going to pick Detroit and their high-powered offense and just their defense to get a little bit more healthy by this time, force a couple of turnovers, and squeak out a win against Philly at home. And now to the Chiefs against the Ravens in the Arrowhead Invitational. Are the Chiefs really going to do this for 3 straight years? Just rattle off win after win after win, get multiple breaks every single week, just continue to squeak out these wins? I just don't know, man. There has never been a three-peat in the NFL for a reason, because it's just so hard to do. You need so much luck and things to go your way. I think this is the year where the Baltimore Ravens go into Arrowhead and take down the Kansas City Chiefs. They were so close in week number 1 to bring that game to overtime and maybe have a chance to win if Isaiah Likely just had like a size or 2 smaller shoe. Last year, the Chiefs went into Baltimore and defeated the Ravens in the AFC Championship game. I think Baltimore gets some revenge this year, does the same thing to the Kansas City Chiefs, and Lamar Jackson gets to his first ever Super Bowl. And now in New Orleans, we have the number 1 seed Lions against the number 3 seed Ravens. And I think at some point, the injury bug for the Lions is going to rear its ugly head. And I think they're going to have a very hard time to stop Lamar Jackson and Derrick Henry. Lamar is one of the best quarterbacks in the league against the blitz. And what have the Lions been doing recently as they've had all these injuries? They've been relying on the blitz a ton to get some pressure on opposing quarterbacks. I think both Lamar Jackson and Derrick Henry have big games, and although I'm pretty scared to trust Lamar in the postseason because he hasn't been a great playoff performer, I think with the addition of Derrick Henry this year, it's going to make the offense a little bit more balanced, and Lamar's finally going to get over his playoff hurdle and hoist the Lombardi Trophy for the Baltimore Ravens in 2025. But that is it. These are my official NFL playoff predictions. Let me know in the comment section down below what you think about them, who you have representing the AFC and NFC in the big game, and who you actually have winning the Super Bowl. And also make sure to enjoy the last bit of football that we have, because I think some of these games are going to be absolute cinema.